the necessities.
What you're smelling is a natural musk.
Ew.
You don't need to be a medical test subject.
How do you feel?
Mostly okay. Sometimes, though.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman.
We need a new stuntman. Let's break for lunch.
You just need an internet connection. Don't get left behind. Start your personal savings plan with the tips and tools on feedthepig.org. That way, you don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
All right, deal.
Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Redefining beauty, brains, and what it really means to be queen. Now that's a job for a Girl Scout.
Hey, Mom, why is the sky blue? Why don't animals talk? Why do dogs have wet noses? Why is an 11 pronounced 21?
Kids ask a lot of questions,
Why do I have a belly button?
but you don't have to know every answer.
Why is the ocean salty?
Because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent.
Why are there 50 states?
There are thousands of children in foster care who don't need every question answered.
Why is pizza round?
They just need you. For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
SKOR North on AM 1500 KSTP St. Paul, Minneapolis, 94.5 KSTP FM St. Paul HD2, and on SKORNorth.com. TCL is a proud sponsor of the SKOR North Studios. TCL, America's fastest growing TV brand. It's Purple Daily.
Myron Medcalf here. Friday Purple Daily on SKOR North. SKORNorth.com. Here with the one and only Manny the Almanac Hill.
What up, bruh?
I'm here, man.
What's going on?
Chilling like a villain. Ain't nothing but to do it. We're obviously going to talk a lot of football. How did you survive the cold, man?
Well, here's what I'll tell you.
Yeah.
This morning, I actually dropped my car off to get an automatic starter installed in my car.
Okay, you got to do it.
So these last couple of days taught me a little lesson.
Oh, you got to do it.
Yeah. But I've been trying to, as long as I've owned this car, I've tried to like hold off having to do that because, I just never really thought about making the investment. But these last couple of days taught me a little lesson. So I dropped it off this morning and I end up taking a lift up here to get to the studio this morning.
Smart move. I'm bougie with it, man. I had an automatic starter right away. I am not trying to play tough guy, but I tell you what. So I've got kids who were off school this week. So they were just like holed up for days and days and days. My problem is they've got more things to do than I ever had to do on inclement days, right? I had a black and white Game Boy with NBA All-Star Challenge 92, a juice box, and a hot dog, and I could survive the whole week off that.
Yeah.
Nobody had to.
The juice boxes, man. The high seas, the Capri
17
Suns.
days in the snow.
Yes.
I can survive hot dog, juice box, NBA All-Star Challenge, Game Boy, black and white. These girls have everything you'd ever want. They got a Nintendo Switch, Chromebook, iPads. They say, hey, Alexa, and she plays whatever song they want. And you know what they said to me about halfway through the first day? I'm bored. You're bored? No, bored is having NBA All-Star Challenge Black and White 92 with a Game Boy and a juice box and a hot dog. That's boredom. You are not bored. You just got too many options, kid.
But here's the other side of that too. They're very fortunate because when you and I were about the same age.
Yeah.
I think you're a year older than me. But we're about the same age. When we were in school and we got, 15 below temperatures, we still went to school.
We went to school. Exactly.
We didn't get these days off.
Listen, if you didn't make it, you weren't supposed to be there. Walk your tail to school in 20 below, and if you don't make it, oh well. That's how it was in the 80s and 90s. These kids get 4 days off. They got all the things you'd want, all the tools you'd want, and yet they're bored. It's ridiculous.
My sister played a little joke on my nephews the other day when they were off of school, obviously. And she let them sleep in a little bit. Let them sleep in till about like 8 o'clock or something like that. And then she went into their rooms and woke them up.
Yeah.
And said, "Come on, boys, wake up. Wake up. You're late for school.
Yes.
You're late for school."
Yes.
And then she let them know she was
That's how you do it, man.
It was funny.
That's how you do it. Well, we got the Super Bowls. Let's get on to some more serious topics here. The Super Bowl is this weekend on Sunday. Manny, very serious question about football here. If you were in charge of the halftime show, dead or alive, which artist would be in your halftime show? Because this weekend it's Travis Scott, who I think he just auto-tunes everything. I don't even think anybody knows what his real voice sounds like, right? He's dating one of the Kardashian kids, right? One of the Kardashian young people.
Or Kylie. One
of the two. Yeah, he's the Jenners.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there is Big Boy from Outkast, which
Outkast. Love Big Boy.
Big Boy, Andre 3000, Outkast changed my life. My first economics lesson was actually from Outkast. It wasn't Econ 101 in college. It was Andre 3000 telling me, true, I've got more fans than the average man, but not enough loot to last me. To the end of the week, I live by the beat like you live check to check. If you don't move your feet, then I don't eat, and we're like neck to neck. That was my first economic lesson. That was from Andre 3000. So it's an honor to watch Big Boy, one of the legendary Atlanta artists, performing this weekend. And then it's Maroon 5, which is really just Adam Levine and his buddies, right?
Pretty much.
Here's what I think happened. I think the Super Bowl called Adam Levine, said, we want you to perform. He just happened to be hanging out with the other dudes, and he was like, hey, can they come too? And the Super Bowl committee was like, fine. Because who are they now? Who's Maroon 5? Everybody knows Adam Levine from The Office, from Voice, and nobody cares about Maroon 5. It's Adam Levine and these other dudes. It reminds me of Beyonce performing a couple years ago. Do you remember when she brought out Destiny's Child for like 13 seconds?
Yeah.
Like they were underneath the stage. Who knows how they got there? They're underneath the stage. Beyonce hit a button. They popped up for 13 seconds, and then that was it. I feel like Maroon 5 is kind of going to be that experience. We want to see Adam Levine. I guess if these other dudes got to come, we'll watch them.
Did they just change their name to the Levines?
Well, that's what they are.
Adam Levine and the,
come on,
and
man.
the Levines.
That's what they are. But if you're in charge of the halftime act,
dead or alive, who would I want?
What does your halftime act look like? I'll give you some time to think about it, and I'll tell you mine.
Okay.
So my halftime show starts with Frank Sinatra coming out.
Okay.
Who you want to talk about a cool white boy, maybe of all time, the coolest dude maybe of all time. If Quincy Jones says you're cool, if Harry Belafonte says you're cool,
everybody loves
Sammy
Frank.
Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra might be the coolest dude of all time.
Everybody loves Frank.
Frank is amazing. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever said a bad thing about Frank Sinatra, right?
Right.
Frank Sinatra opens it up because that's going to set the mood right? Everybody loves Frank. Then I'm going to come in with George Clinton in Parliament, right? George Clinton Parliament, if you all don't know,
I like it.
They are the manufacturers of the funk era. I went to a George Clinton show at 7 years old. He played for 4 hours straight, no breaks. 4 hours straight, no breaks. That's one of the greatest shows I've ever been to. My main act, though, my Travis Scott, is he the main actor or is it Adam Levine? I don't know who's.
I think Maroon 5 is like
the main, and then Travis Scott is just
Travis Scott and Big
Boy.
Go
to sing and he's go sit next to the Jenners, whatever. Okay. For me, my main act would be all of the 90s hip hop West Coast All-Stars.
Yes.
It would be Snoop, Cube,
Tupac,
Warren G, Pac. Like, people today don't understand what it's like to be a kid and to hear Regulator and just to lose your mind. I'll tell you what, I can be driving today at 35. Let Regulator come on today, and I just change my whole vibe. Like, I'm always making that. I'm always hooking the left on 200 Lewis in my mind when that song comes on. That would be my crew, man. I'd start with Sinatra, George Clinton Parliament to get the crowd hype, and then just bring out every West Coast 90s hip-hop star. Like Dub C, if somebody can find him, I'd bring him out.
Where is Dub C?
Well, that's the question. Ice Cube, Mac 10. Mac 10 and Dub C are proof that you just need good friends in life. And you can get a record deal because their claim to fame was they knew Ice Cube.
Just have the whole West Side Connection there.
West Side Connection.
Yeah.
That would be my whole crew. Just all these West Coast hip-hop stars playing nothing but the hits. What about you, Maddie? You're in charge of the halftime act.
Okay. Well, Frank Sinatra, if we're going like old school throwback, Frank Sinatra is a good one.
Don't leave your girl around Frank, by the way. I know Usher said it first, but Frank Sinatra was saying that way back in the day.
Okay, so Phil Collins is one that I
like
really
that.
Think about that.
He's universal too.
Yeah.
Nobody's like, I hate
great.
Phil Collins. Like he's universal.
Yeah, and I think he actually came here. I think he performed at Target Center or something back in like October or something like
Really?
that. He had a show here.
I bet it was sold out right away.
It probably was, yeah. I
Yeah.
thought about going, but
Phil's the real deal. I like Phil.
Range.
That's a great Super Bowl, because you got to think Super Bowl level show.
Yeah. And, you know, he would have to end the show, end the performance with In the Air Tonight.
Of course.
You just have to.
Of course.
Of course. And then I'll go the same route you had with hip hop, except I would go all East Coast.
I love it.
So it'd be Biggie,
yes,
Nas,
yes,
Jay-Z,
the whole crew.
Yeah,
you throw a couple Wu-Tang members in there.
Yes,
man, I went to a full Wu-Tang show back in the day where it was like all 19 of them. No idea what they were saying. Like, if you ever want to be scared, go to a Wu-Tang show. Like, if you ever want to be like, are they about to jump off the stage and just start fighting random people? Go to a Wu-Tang Clan show, because that's what it was like.
I did see Ghostface perform.
The real deal.
At the Caboose a couple of years ago. It was a little
Wallabies.
It was a little more chill.
Yeah,
because he was just by himself, but it wasn't the whole Wu-Tang crew.
I was such a fan. I went to a U-God concert one time.
Oh boy!
And it was like in the back of this bar almost. It was like the smallest venue I've ever been to. It was so small that to get to the stage, he had to walk through the crowd from the front entrance. Like, it was one of those old school small joints.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, Wu-Tang, I like that. East Coast hip hop stars would be great.
Yeah.
So we're going into the Super Bowl, but it doesn't seem like anybody cares because the NBA just squashed all of the Super Bowl buzz with everything that happened with the NBA.
Yeah.
Nothing like the NBA and the power that individual stars have to just shut everything down. Kyrie, Porzingis, when big stars, there's news around big stars, LeBron comes back, it just demands its own spotlight. The NFL doesn't have that. How many stars does the NFL really have?
Outside of quarterbacks?
Well, you got about
quarterbacks are really the only stars.
You got about 10, but it's about 10 of them that are really stars.
Yeah.
Skill players, I mean, maybe a Saquon Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Todd Gurley's a star. I mean, he's paid like one, but I don't think people see Todd Gurley and go, he's a star. You know, maybe Ezekiel Elliott in Dallas because he's with the Cowboys, but Antonio Brown, there's a couple receivers maybe, but maybe less than 20 legit stars. And most NBA teams have a star, which is why you have a day like you had yesterday. So what you get with the NBA is these amazing storylines that you don't necessarily get in the NFL. But in the NFL, you get a better postseason. The problem with the NBA is superstars have so much control, and they're playing together that the postseason isn't interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL, if you look at Vegas, there aren't any blowouts. I mean, the lines are never more than 6, maybe, depending on the game. So the NFL has mastered the postseason. And that's what I think we're going to see on Sunday. Because for the second year in a row, yeah, you got Brady and the Patriots, but you've also got a team that can clearly take them down.
Yeah, a team that's very much equipped to take down the Patriots, yeah.
Like for me, Manny, if you took the Patriots and you took the Rams and you put them on a field and you said, okay, based on paper, who would you pick? Most people are going to pick the Rams.
Yeah.
Like, Brady is the only reason you're picking the Patriots. Like, you're not picking it from that defense, which has been so inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
You're not picking it because of what a Gronk or an Edelman. You're looking at the other side and going, Goff has so many weapons. You've got this D-line with Sue, Aaron Donald, which they're just monsters. You know, is Marcus Peters vulnerable? Maybe, but I tell you what, that defense has put it together when they needed to.
Yeah.
And they played great down the stretch against New Orleans.
The Rams defense seems to just be able to do just enough.
They
don't completely shut you down, and they don't really need to shut you down because they can put so many points on the board. They seem to just they know how to get stops when they need to, and they seem to be able to do just enough for them to win.
Which is why you look at them and go, they've got athletes. The Rams have more athletes at every position, right? They're the more athletic team.
Sure.
They have the playmakers, which matters in moments like this. It mattered a lot last year. The Patriots were the Patriots, but the Eagles had more playmakers in my mind. How far, though? Because you can't compare anybody to the Patriots. Because that is – no one will ever duplicate what they've done. Like, that will never happen again.
Mm-hmm.
From picking a 6th-round guy who becomes the greatest quarterback to the system staying the same to getting good players to play for less than market value just to be a part of that. We're not going to see that anymore. And I think the Rams are proof of that. Aaron Donald's going to get his money. The Aaron Donalds of the world.
Yeah.
The Todd Gurley's of the world going to get their money. Jared Goff is going to reset the market at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these guys are going to get their money. It's not going to be a Patriots, I'll take less if it means having you on my team. But I don't feel like the Rams are that far from the Vikings. Like, I don't feel like the gap on paper is so significant to where you go, oh my goodness, the Vikings could never be that. Why not? Like, aren't the Vikings supposed to be that? Like, if you go back a year ago with the investment in Kirk Cousins, with all the pieces coming back, Thielen and Diggs, with all of the defensive pieces, aren't they supposed to be the Rams? What am I missing? Jared Goff has thrown 1 touchdown. He's completed less than 60% of his passes in the playoffs. He threw 6 interceptions in the last 5 games of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
What am I missing about this team? Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen are one of the best duos in the league, right? For a stretch, they were the best wide receiving duo in the league.
Sure.
What am I missing? This is the number 1 defense from last year. Bringing back all of his pieces and some. Aren't the Vikings supposed to be the Rams this year?
You would think, because you have at the skill positions, like you said, you have playmakers. You have a defense that's really, really good. You have a quarterback that, at least the idea of him, is very, very good, even though there's probably some room for improvement there. But, you have a running back, a young running back that, if he can stay healthy, is very, very good.
You could put Dalvin Cook with the Rams on Sunday, and you wouldn't notice the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, C.J. Anderson.
Saying, yeah.
C.J. Anderson has been their go-to running back anyway.
Yep.
Gurley hasn't been great. You could put Dalvin Cook, swap him for Gurley, doesn't change that game. Right?
Sure.
So, that's supposed to be the Vikings.
And I know the conventional wisdom, or at least the answer for a lot of Vikings fans, will see, well, the Rams have an offensive line. They do, and they have like an all-world left tackle in Andrew Whitworth and everything, and those other guys in that line are pretty good. John Sullivan has, the Rams have sort of rejuvenated his career. He's in the Super Bowl now as their starting center, former Viking center. But I look at the Vikings, and I'm not sure that just adding a guard or 2 is automatically going to take them from 8-7-1 to 13-3 and going to the Super Bowl. I think it goes a lot deeper than that. I think it starts with coaching. I think it starts with offensive scheme. Whatever scheme they were doing under John DeFilippo, it didn't work. Now, yeah, a lot of that was the offensive line. A lot of it was the quarterback too. But it just seemed like John DeFilippo didn't do a good enough job of like recognizing and understanding his personnel and saying, okay, let's try and do what these guys do best. Let's play to these guys' strength and not just try to impose a system onto them, because I think that's honestly what Sean McVay has done. Now, the Rams have a ton of talent. We know that.
Extremely talented.
But I also think that Sean McVay got hired by the Rams and looked at what he had and said, okay, let's find a way to maximize the talents of all of these talented players and go from there. And you see the results.
We're going to talk more about this, because I think there's a conversation to be had about the Vikings, being a team like the Rams right now. And that's what the investment was for, to get a team like this that can make a run to the Super Bowl. We'll be back after this.
Sports talk that leans north. SKOR North. Minnesota sports anytime.
Myron Medcalf back here on Purple Daily on SKOR North, SKORNorth.com. What's the number so people can call in?
651-646-8255.
Yeah, we'd love to hear some people on this. I just – one of the things as someone, a transplant from Wisconsin, where we won Super Bowls, right? And we understood –
humble bragging over there.
The taste of victory was everywhere. One of the things I always felt about Vikings fans was they were always hesitant to think too highly about a team, right? And that's just history, right? If you're a Vikings fan and you've seen so many good teams end up in bad situations, I get it. But I still think you should be disappointed by a team like this not being in a position that the Rams are in right now. This is the Minnesota team that beat the Saints team that everybody assumed would be in Atlanta right now, right? And if it's not for one bad call, the Saints are in Atlanta. So this is a team where you go, okay, they beat the Saints. This is a team where you look at them and say, they've got the pieces like the Rams. Now, they might not have an Aaron Donald. Who does? There's only one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But collectively, they had the better defense last year, the previous season. They had the top defense in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Cousins, right? Remember Jared Goff, pre-Sean McVay? He was a bust in the eyes of a lot of people.
Oh, he was a disaster.
Jared Goff, pre-Sean McVay, was the guy who was not worth his pick, who was picked too high, who was never going to blossom into an elite quarterback. And now he gets Sean McVay and everyone goes, my goodness, this guy's about to make $120 million in a couple of years. So you cannot just say, oh my goodness, Jared Goff. Jared Goff wasn't nobody before Sean McVay. Kirk Cousins came here with a far more established track record of success. Jared Goff was a project. So you're supposed to be winning at quarterback. You're supposed to be, comparable, certainly at wide receiver in terms of your targets. Again, Dalvin Cook ain't that far from what they have there. C.J. Anderson has carried the bulk of the workload for the Rams in the playoffs.
He certainly did in the NFC Championship game.
Man, and that dude is at the Waffle House before games. That dude is eating pancakes and biscuits, gravy. He's putting sausage in a to-go plate. That dude is eating good before games.
You got me wanting Waffle House now.
C.J. Anderson will be there. Let me tell you. So why aren't they the Rams? Why aren't they as good as the Rams? There's no reason for it. Like, there's no reason that you look at this team and go, they can't be that. That should be the expectation. We got a caller.
Ed in Robbinsdale.
What up, Ed?
Hey, Myron. Manny, thanks for taking my call. 57 years old as of yesterday. Been a Vikes
Happy
fan
birthday.
all my life. Thank
Happy
you.
belated, Ed. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's tough because you know what? Every year I keep believing that we're going to get to the Super Bowl and then we're going to win. And another little subplot behind this was I work for a certain delivery company that delivered the trophy last year. So I was really excited about the prospects of that happening, but it didn't. But my question to you is, what do you think about Rick Spielman? I think he's done some good things, but obviously the line is probably the big thing on really putting this team back on the map and giving them a chance to do something. And I also find it funny, too, how we thought John Sullivan couldn't play anymore, and, he's the starting center in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Just kind of – and just a couple of things going forward about guys that should we sign for next year, should we not? I actually think with the way the league's going, we need two good tight ends. I mean, look what the Eagles are doing. That's what we need. I love Kyle Rudolph, but not at the price that he's going to command. Thanks, guys, for taking my call.
Yeah, I mean, I think great call. I think the trenches is still going to be the battle, right? The offensive line, and I keep going back to this example. If you want to talk about the value of adding a guard, adding someone that can fortify your line. Look at the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest question about the Indianapolis Colts was, oh my goodness, can they protect Andrew Luck? Because if they can't, he's going to come back and it ain't going to last that long because somebody's going to break him in half. Andrew Luck was one of the most protected quarterbacks in the entire NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Why? In large part because they brought in a guy in Quentin Nelson who became an all-pro offensive lineman. He's nasty. I don't know if you watch Quentin Nelson.
Oh, yeah.
He's nasty. And he set the tone of that O-line. And that O-line committed itself to buying time for a quarterback who, when Andrew Luck is protected, he's a top 5 quarterback.
And they just re-signed Mark Lewinsky, their guard. That was really good for them this year. Gave him a 3-year contract extension.
That whole offensive line, Manny, is to me what the Vikings should be looking at in terms of what can happen. Right? What can happen? I don't know if they're a piece away, but I'd like to see it.
Yeah, I think they definitely need to upgrade on the offensive line. I also do think, though, that with Gary Kubiak coming in and
assistant to the regional manager, Gary Kubiak.
Yeah.
Him and his 8 cousins. Everybody got a job with Gary Kubiak.
I do think that he and Kevin Stefanski they should be able to collaborate and put together like their ideal scheme. Because
will Zimmer let them know?
I think he definitely will now. I think now that Kubiak is in the mix, I think this could be heaven for Mike Zimmer because now he doesn't have to worry about the offense at all in his mind because he's got Stefanski in place as the offensive coordinator, but he's got a very, very accomplished offensive mind as like an assistant coach and offensive advisor. I mean, this was a guy who won the Super Bowl as a head coach, Gary Kubiak, just 3 years ago. So, I mean, I think for Mike Zimmer specifically, I think this is exactly what Mike Zimmer wants because now he can focus all his attention on the defense, which is, I think, what he really wants to do anyway. He doesn't want to have to worry about the offense.
Yes.
And this year with the struggles of the offense and having a new coordinator in and DeFilippo and, kind of trying to implement his own system, Zimmer kind of felt like he had to have his fingerprints on the offense a little bit more, and it took away from his defense in his mind.
Yeah.
Now, I personally think a head coach should have his fingerprints all over the team. He should be able to.
Yeah, but he's got to know his weaknesses, though.
Sure.
He's got to know his weaknesses.
And I think with Kubiak being on the staff now, I think Zimmer realizes that he doesn't have to worry so much about the offense anymore. Like Judd has said it perfectly since Kubiak got that. Kubiak is head coach offense now, and Mike Zimmer is head coach defense. Now, Zimmer is technically, officially the head coach, but now he's got a guy in Kubiak who can sort of be the head coach of the offense.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you look at, obviously, the Rams. Wade Phillips runs that defense. Wade Phillips, who won a Super Bowl with Kubiak. Wade Phillips is a guy who, if you're young Sean McVay, you got to have the confidence in yourself to know, and the security to say, I'm going to let Wade do what Wade does. And this could be a similar situation for Mike Zimmer. I'll let Gary Kubiak do what he does, and I'll step aside. Because those situations can work out really well when they're effective, right?
Mm-hmm.
The caller asked about Spielman. He's the first guy to get fired next season if this is a disaster, right?
Yeah.
If there's a disaster, he's the first guy to go because
it'd probably be him and Zimmer both. Probably.
Yeah, but I think he goes before Zimmer. Because there's still a gap where you go, if you can make a move on that O-line, potentially, what are you going to do with the defense? Anthony Barr, there's different situations there. But for the most part, it's not a personnel problem. There are a whole lot of teams in this league where you look at them and go, my goodness, they're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've had far more personnel problems than the Vikings. Go look at the Seattle Seahawks, who pumped out a top 15 defense after losing every key player from that Legion of Boom, including Earl Thomas, who got hurt early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Go look at what they did. That team had a personnel problem. Still make the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Carolina Panthers have a personnel problem. Like, they may not bring Cam Newton back next season because they're like, dude, we don't know if we can protect him. Somebody's going to break him in half with his offensive line. They got a personnel problem. The Minnesota Vikings don't have a personnel problem.
It's true.
Like, they don't have a personnel problem.
They have talent on defense. They have talent on offense.
So there are no excuses there.
But you know what though, Myron? I honestly think scheme is a big part of it.
Huge.
I think there's some warts on the offensive side, I think, on the offensive line.
Thielen not getting free is like Thielen and what teams did against him, that's coaching.
Sure.
Like how they were able to key on him and neutralize him, that's a scheme thing.
And I also think too, part of it, and this is where I think where they could, and Collar's talked about this a lot in the last couple of weeks, where they could help the offense and in particular help Kirk Cousins if they can't just put together an all-world perfect offensive line for Kirk Cousins, which is what everybody thinks that he needs to be successful. What they can do, though, is go out and find a third wide receiver to take some of the pressure off of Thielen and Diggs, because
I like that.
Teams were keying in on those two guys and double teaming them and taking them out of the game plan, making it even harder for Kirk Cousins, aside from the pressure that Kirk was under because of the poor offensive line play. So if you add him another weapon, you mentioned last segment, you mentioned adding another tight end, 2 tight end set, adding another weapon for Kirk Cousins to take some of the pressure off of Thielen and Diggs because they're getting double teamed so much as they were late in the season. You add some weapons, and that can help you too. And I also think with Kubiak coming in, I think the scheme there's gonna be a difference in the scheme and a scheme to work to where they're going to be able to maximize the talented players that they have.
I agree with everything you're saying because scheme does matter.
Mm-hmm.
But Manny, I watched the New England Patriots run the same doggone drag route with Julian Edelman, who's 5'3", and everybody knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it still worked.
Tony Romo knew it was coming
but
in the booth.
It still worked.
I know.
So for me, that's a team that, again, it's hard to compare anybody to them. But I just expect those same results when you have elite receivers and elite playmakers.
Yeah, I know.
So scheme is a factor. But what are the Patriots doing so well that an Edelman can come in, run the same routes, and it's effective?
But I think with New England, this has been talked about a lot. They're like a game plan offense. They don't really have like a system or a scheme.
Yeah.
They focus on what their next opponent is and how they can expose the weaknesses
100%
in the defense of the opponent that they're playing.
Yeah.
And then they put together a game plan that week to be able to execute.
Which is why the Rams should be afraid, because Belichick has had 2 weeks to plan on how to carve
I don't know,
up.
though, man. He had 2 weeks to prepare for Nick Foles last year, and it didn't matter.
Yeah, but Brady still throws for 500 yards in that game.
I know.
Like against the top scoring defense in the league.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying with the Vikings is, when it comes to expectations, is you don't have the problems that so many other teams in this league have. The talent is there. You're missing some pieces. The talent is there. And when I look at the Los Angeles Rams, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're in LA, right? Or they're St. Louis? Where they? They've been so many places. I don't even know.
I think they're in Anaheim.
Are they really
Inglewood,
in LA? Or
stadiums in Inglewood.
Bottom line, nobody in
Anaheim.
LA even cares. But when I look at the Rams, I say to myself, on paper, there's not that big of a gap.
Well,
it's not. Aaron Donald's a freak of nature. You can't compare anyone to him,
Right.
but he's not the whole defense.
Well, and you know this too. In the NFL, I mean, things can turn around very quickly for a team. I mean,
Jeff Fisher to Sean McVay. Look at the difference.
The Rams are a perfect example
Yes.
of this. They were a dumpster fire under Jeff Fisher, and then all they did was change the head coach, added a few pieces here and there, and 2 years later they're in the Super Bowl.
But that's why Zimmer looks so bad in this transition from an NFC championship game team to what happened last year, is because there are so many examples. I brought up the Seahawks, lost everybody in that defense, playoff team. The Rams, who Jared Goff was a project and a failure in the eyes of many, they're now in the Super Bowl. You can't bring up the Saints because they got so many different weapons, but there are a number of teams where you look at them and go, they didn't have as much as the Vikings, not even close. The Colts didn't have it. The Colts are using Marlon Mack, a 4th-round pick at running back. T.Y. Hilton had been hurt all season. He's making plays. Like, there are so many teams that I look at around the league that made the playoffs and go, the Vikings had as much, if not more, than they did.
But I also wonder, though, if the Vikings in 2017, and they had a great season, I also wonder if they may have overachieved a little bit. They were good, but if you think about it, like they got to the NFC Championship game. I mentioned this last week or earlier this week. They got to the NFC Championship game because Marcus Williams ducked out of the way of Stephon
Couldn't
Diggs
make a play that a middle school player would make.
Otherwise the Vikings were one and done and getting beat in the divisional round. And the Saints were going on to the NFC Championship game. And that's not to say the Vikings don't deserve credit for getting as far as they did in 2017.
Yeah.
But I also wonder if they are 13-3 in 2017 was the high end of where they were.
Yeah.
And if what we saw this year is the low end of, and like if truly this team is like maybe like a 10, maybe 11 win team.
Yeah.
That if they get some breaks to go their way, then they can go to the NFC Championship game or maybe the Super Bowl.
Well, another synonym for the word overachieve is winning, right? Yeah. So it might be overachieving, but you're winning. You know, that's all that matters. And I think it's fair to expect this level of play with the Vikings, considering all the talent they have. When we come back, I'm going to tell you how I almost ruined the Super Bowl for the Eagles last year. And we'll also give our predictions for Sunday's game after this.
Constant coverage on your